Here we are again, back in the English countryside for another instalment of me figuring out what I'm going to do with this YouTube channel. I want to tell you a little bit about why I'm starting this channel and dig into a bit of what I've done before, because all that feeds into why I want to do this. Quick recap from the first video. I am just bouncing back from cancer, from losing my business, from losing my dad, from bringing up twin girls who are now just over 18 months old, and it all happened at once, and it was brutal. This channel is partly about documenting that recovery and also building something new, because it feels like the universe wanted me to have a fresh start. I think that it's actually 3 months today since I had my major surgery to remove my bladder, my prostate, and a bit of bowel to create a stoma. And physically, I'm doing really well. I'm getting back out again. I'm getting to walk in nature, which is amazing. I'm currently walking on a fairly steep bit of forest, which I don't know if the camera does justice to this. If I fall over, let's see if it makes a cut. So 3 months since my surgery, and before that there was just 18 months of sheer, just one thing to another brutalness, and I haven't breathed really, and I haven't got out of fight or flight mode for getting on 2 years. Now is the first time I'm getting out of it, and I'm pretty sure I've got some pretty epic PTSD going on. Just having like weird panic attacks in the household. Everything that's happened is beginning to come back, and I'm kind of realizing how much back to zero I am, how much there is to rebuild. Everything was either like dealing with immediate traumatic stuff happening, or like escaping to some fantasy of like how the world might be if everything stopped being crazy. But anyway, yeah, so like reality is beginning to bite, and it's really scary. You know, the physical healing is pretty much there, but the emotional healing is going to take time. And I want to do it here with y'all on YouTube, and I'm both losing my track and where I am. Yeah, kind of fittingly, there is no path. There's a path backwards, but there's not a path forwards. Well, even if there isn't one, I'm going to make one up. I've kind of made some rough notes of like various, what I want to do with the channel, and kind of, yeah, and why. So there's a bit of background. There'll be a bit of background on me and what I've done. But for now, let's take a break while I find a way through this shrubbery. I see light. Found the path again, and after all that talk about being physically back, maybe not completely. It's going to take some time to catch my breath, but I can still talk. So, some details I know. It's going to be walking and talking, mostly in nature, maybe in cities as well. It's going to be just me at first, but over time I want to do walks and talks. I want to do walks and talks with people of interest in interesting places. My goal at first is to do one video every 2 weeks and see how we go. And then maybe, if it's going well, I'll up it to one video a week. Stylistically, I'm going to figure this out as I go, but the kind of vibe I want to go for is, I guess, kind of a mashup between ASMR-y, being in nature, nice footage of beautiful places, artfully shot, and of course, real stories of people talking to camera. Yeah, like I said, going to put a video out once every 2 weeks, and develop this whole thing in conversation with you. So that's probably a good moment to do the hit subscribe thing. Be a darling, won't you? Well, look, there's a bench. I'm gonna go and sit on this bench for a bit. Let's talk why while I'm sitting on a bench looking over the Wiltshire countryside. YouTube got me through the hardest times. Of course, friends and family got me through, but I've spent a lot of time in hospital beds, in my own bed, over the last few months, not really being able to do much at all. And I watched a hell of a lot of YouTube. The stories people are telling and the way they're telling them on YouTube, I found so much that I could resonate with, and I found so much that just inspired me in the way that sort of very edited, very curated TV style doesn't really so much. I just want to shout out a few channels. I'll link them all in the description. Yeah, traveloguing, two outstanding examples. Peter Santenello. And Bald and Bankrupt, both going to interesting places and finding interesting people and telling interesting stories in very, very inspiring, compelling ways. Then there's this guy Martijn Doolaard who's rebuilding this homestead up in the Italian Alps, and he just does a video every week, and he's been doing it for over 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years now. His editing is absolutely fantastic. I love the way it makes me feel. It's super chill, and he's a really great, he frames his shots really nicely. And just tracking this progress of what he's doing on that farmstead is just a really great kind of morsel of, it's like a sanctuary every week. Software Underbelly, this guy called Mark Leiter, talking head interviews. He's off camera, and the subjects are people who've just had the most horrendous things happen to them in their lives. He's really great at interviewing them, and he's really great at getting their stories out of them in a really sensitive way. Oh God, the stuff that people go through, and the ways that people get through the stuff they go through. And what else? Well, I'm quite a car YouTube fan. I love the tech, I love the engineering, but there's this one guy, Matt Armstrong, who buys wrecked cars and does them up again. And he does it all himself. Well, he doesn't do it all himself. What's really amazing about what he does is that he's got his dad involved, he's got his best friend involved, his girlfriend's involved, and he's really just like bringing people together. And I love that. It's just so inspiring. Oh yeah, and just recently, actually, since I shot the last video, this guy called Goobie Doobie, basically he's been running this channel, just kind of like shots of nature, just him out and about with his dog. It's like, sort of 10 hours of meditative lake or mountain, whatever. But anyway, he kind of posted the first time he was on camera, and he posted this 50-minute long his story of like how he used to be a neurosurgeon and then he quit and why he's doing what he's doing now. And it's gone mega viral. He's definitely onto something, and people have really picked up on it. So yeah, I'll drop a link to that as well. Right, time for some views. So another really big reason why I want to do this is that I've been to some really amazing places and I've met some really amazing people, and I want to tell those stories because there's some quite amazing stories about people or places, and quite often both. That was mostly through my first life, I guess, was as a musician. So I spent 10 years making records, releasing records, touring, kind of mostly in Europe, but I did actually play in every continent around the world. I kind of got out of that about 10 years ago and got more into the tech side of things. But while I was touring, at the peak of things, I was playing like 2, 3, 4 shows a week, and I was hopping on planes, going to all sorts of different cities and being quite literally flown into the heart of the culture of a certain place. As soon as I got out of that, I realized what a precious gift that was. It was so cool just to land at an airport and then you get picked up usually by somebody who is like deeply embedded in the scene of a certain city, and they've always got amazing stories to tell. You get to kind of sample the heartbeat of a city, I guess. I won't do the name drops now because also I don't want to set up any expectations of who I may or may not get to talk to on this channel. But particularly in the world of like culture, interviews with artists and interesting people are often really staged. They're environments that are designed to like highly cherry pick and curate what you hear from people. I've had the privilege to hear the unvarnished stories from people who have done really interesting things, and they're just so much more interesting than the cherry-picked stories. So I hope to get to walk and talk with some really interesting people. They may or may not be people you've heard of. Quite often, some of the most interesting people are actually the people that you've hardly even heard of, who've been like scurrying away behind the scenes, have been there where all the cool stuff has happened, but they've just sort of kept a low profile. So anyway, I want to tell stories. I want to tell stories in an unvarnished way. A very obvious reason for wanting to do this YouTube channel is that I love nature and I love walking in nature, and frankly I want to have an excuse to do more of it. In fact, I love all of the stuff that I want to do with this channel. I love talking with people, I love telling stories, I love walking, I love nature, and so I want to find an excuse to do all of that stuff every week or two. Yes, drink it in. Drink in the nature. So this one's not so short, and I hope I don't get really rambly with this, but another big reason for starting this channel is I want to make music for something. My first life, and my first love really, was making music. I then got into actually making music software, which kind of led me to eventually kind of fall out of music and become a CEO and do that whole thing instead. But it was 20 years ago when I first got into the music industry, and the music industry was very, very different then. You could actually get paid for stuff. I mean, it was at the beginning of the age when music sales were plummeting because of file sharing, but still you could make a record and you could make enough money to live for a year or two from making a record, and there were labels and they did well and they promoted music, and there were national radio stations that played music and you got good royalties for getting played on radio, and then you'd get good fees for playing live shows. In the last 10 years I've been really focused on making music software, and even when in the last 5 years I wasn't even doing that, I was just like running a company, and I really miss making music. And so I wanted to start making music again, but coming back, I'm looking at how the music industry is today and how hard musicians are finding it. I don't have it in me to do that kind of grind. And it really got me thinking about why. When I was first kind of breaking through as a musician, I was making music for two things: me and money. That kind of worked back then. Because people would spend money on records and people would buy into these kind of cultural moments. But people don't really buy into cultural moments anymore. They don't really spend money like that. You get sort of paid in likes, paid in exposure, which obviously doesn't pay the bills. And I think there's something else going on, which I think is also ties into why I find YouTube so inspiring right now. People want to connect with something a lot more solid than just kind of cultural moments. A lot of people are talking about community. People want to connect with communities. They want to connect with real stories. I think people want to connect with something that really lasts and something that they can be part of. As an artist, it's really hard to build something that people can really be a part of, because it's kind of abstract and intangible. Whereas I think why I found YouTube so healing when things were really bad, I got this sense of intimacy, of depth, of getting really close to something. And I think it's quite hard to do that in music. But I do want to make music again. I just figured that making music for this channel, for that purpose, was just a much better context for making music. And that way I don't have to overthink it. I don't have to spend months thinking about marketing it. It's just something I do. Every time there's a video, I write a bit of music to go with it. Hi. So I ran into this gentleman earlier on my travels. This is Adam Gordon. Happens to be a broadcast cameraman. We got talking about all sorts of things.
Setting up the channel and the whole idea of it. Fantastic. It's nice to see all the new technology.
Yeah, there's some amazing new tech.
In the wilds of Wiltshire as well.
In the wilds of Wiltshire, I love it.
It is. It's peaceful out here. I'm being grateful. We moved out here about 10, 11 years ago and I've never regretted it.
Okay, where did you move from?
I'm born and bred South London, but my wife's from York.
Oh, whereabouts? Peckham?
No, not quite. Croydon.
Croydon, oh right,
South
okay.
Croydon.
Yeah, South Croydon.
Not really London, some people say so.
Well, I mean, it's where dubstep came from.
Well, I think there's even a social Facebook group of Lost Croydon. So there you go. But, no, never looked back, I think, ever since that point. But I love living out in the countryside, and it's a joy to have the quality of life. Good luck with the venture.
Thank you very much.
I recommend getting 2 dogs for you, because you'll get an
look at these.
Audience for the dogs, if nothing else.
What are the names?
That's Wilbur, your pedigree.
Wilbur.
4 years old boy, and she's Aggie, 9 years old girl.
Aggie, hello.
Sweet as the thing, but she barks because she's old.
Maybe we all start barking when we're old.
I think the simple answer is just to let you know I'm here. Because I think when you're around, that's absolutely right. Oh, good to
have a great day.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye. Maybe Adam Gordon is the first person to feature on this channel, which I love it. Someone who I literally just met. Never met him before. Just met him today. We got talking about what he does and what I'm doing. And yeah, so I want to make music for something, and I'm going to make music for this channel. When I was making music for me, it's just an absolute cesspit of anxiety. And I think if I can make music for this purpose, which ultimately, I just want to do stuff that lifts people up. I want you to feel lucky in the way that I feel lucky. I feel lucky to be alive because I might not have been. I feel lucky that I've got amazing people around me. I just want to share messages of hope. Right now, if you write music and you haven't found something to write music for, then don't make a career out of it. Really do it for you. Do it for your sanity, rather than, your, I don't know, brand. But I don't know. I mean, each to their own. You've got to do things your way. And right now, this just feels like the best way for me. This is Roundway Hill in Wiltshire. I used to live here when I was a teenager. Moved here when I was about 17, lived here till, I don't know, I was like 24, 25. And I'd come up here a lot. Look at these epic, I think they're Scotch pines. Or are they? No, maybe they're not. They're just trees with big trunks. And then for some reason I find those big long trunks where the leaves are really high up just epic. I can't tell you why. They're just epic. And these views, like over here, sweeping views over into the valley. It stretches for miles. It's beautiful. Fluffy clouds in the blue sky. What more could you want? What more could you want? What else is there to write music for? Thanks for coming along on this second exploration into what the hell is going to happen with this channel. So I hope that gives you a bit of the picture, at least of the ingredients, and a little bit of an idea of where I want to take this. There was actually another thing that was in my list of reasons, but I didn't think it kind of merited its own section, but because it's kind of obvious. I love making videos. I did that a lot when I was an artist, probably even more when I was a CEO. You know, like, I loved shoot days, like when we were launching a new product. There's so much focus on colour, light and sound and detail. You have to be really careful with how you spend your time, and you have to have hawk eyes on what's happening every second. And you're just like dealing with the very down to the very metal of like the things that culture is made of: words, pictures, colour, light, sound, music. So I'm excited about getting to do more of that. I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with something else. I don't know exactly what it is yet. I'm also shooting a few of these videos ahead before we launch the channel, so I'm not quite at the point where like I'm going to be making the video from one video to the next, if you see what I mean. I want to build up a bit of a bank because, you know, my energy is not 100% back. There've been a couple of instances and be like, hey, I feel fine, and then a couple of days later I'm just like, I am not fine. And also I still don't really know what I'm doing from one day to the next because everything has changed. But yeah, man, I'm really excited for this. It feels like the right thing for me at the right time. And I hope it's the right thing for you. I hope it's good. I hope you enjoy it. Do please subscribe if you've enjoyed this. If you're as excited, or even if you're only 30% as excited about what this channel might become as I am, then do consider subscribing, because that helps. I mean, I'll just mention that the GoFundMe campaign is still live. Like, we hit the target, so we're fine. But like, if you do resonate with all of this and you feel compelled to help out, then I'll leave the link there. But like, as I said, you know, that campaign is funded now, and it's just, I mean, basically that's still, as of today, is the only source of income I have. I'm working on a few, but I think, you know, everything's going to be okay. But just in case it's not, that's still there. So the link to that is in the description. Yeah, more next week. Have yourself a bit more of this amazing place. And I will see you again in a couple of weeks' time.